as the leaves change color and fall brings a bite to the air. You're watching 5 after midnight. Pleasant dreams. One.
I have a random reoccurrence in my life, and I have never heard of someone having something similar that happens to them, that happens to me, and I have no idea what has been happening to me. Basically, a few times out of the year, every year, I wake up with some horrendous scratch marks on my upper back. It's almost as if something has clawed me, or I clawed myself in my sleep. I know it's not me, though, as I bite my nails, and I have always bitten my nails so short that it would be impossible to leave the marks. Additionally, the location would make it really hard for me to do it in my sleep, as I normally have an arm underneath my pillow. It really freaks out my wife at this point, and I have no idea what could be causing it.
2.
One night in college, after a couple of beers at a party with my friends, I stumbled back to my dorm with my suite mate, my best friend of 4 years. When I awoke the next morning, I noticed that the bed was all wet and sticky. Not urine or anything like that, but blood. My pillow, bed sheets, and comforter were all covered in blood. The left side of my face was too caked in black, dried blood, all centered around my left ear. Panicking, I went over to my suite mate, and he said that I might have had a stroke or something in the middle of the night, and that we should get to the hospital immediately. Okay, I said, and proceeded to brush and take a quick shower. There was no pain, and my ear wasn't bleeding anymore. So we went to the hospital emergency room, and the doctors take one look at me and are shocked. They proceed to tell me all that's wrong with me. My left clavicle is broken through my skin. I have a nasal fracture, a skull fracture, fractures in 2 of my vertebrae, and bleeding in my brain. The blood has punctured my left eardrum and made its way out. Additionally, the left side of my face is paralyzed. I am shocked beyond belief. My suite mate is too. I have no memory, no recollection at all of what could have happened the night before. The hospital called the police because they believe someone must have attacked me, and I can't remember anything. 2 Yonkers Police Department officers arrive and question my friend. He swears that he was in my room while I was getting into bed. He says that while I was drunk and tottering on my feet, I hadn't fallen anywhere, and no one had beaten the crap out of me. I believe him, and I think the cops did too. But they went back to my school and conducted an investigation, which consisted of questioning my friends and checking the security camera footage. They found nothing. I couldn't have been beaten up, as my friend was with me the whole night, and he would have said or done something. My room was locked from the inside, and there was no way to get it out of the room through the window. I had no external bruising, no minor injuries, except for the extremely serious ones that I have already said. There was no blood anywhere in my room except for my bed. My bed, too, has no headboard, no protruding metal pieces, or anything like that for me to have hurt myself on. Until now, I have no idea what happened to me that night. I've mostly recovered from my injuries, but the fact that something this inexplicable happened to me is disturbing me to this day.
3.
I live in Amsterdam, and I live at my parents' house. I was playing on my iPod one night before going to bed when I felt something poking my right side. I thought nothing of it and ignored it. Then I felt something poking me again and again and again, and I still ignored it. Then it poked me really hard to the point where I could actually feel it, and it hurt a little bit. I was trying to sit up to investigate when my arm touched something cold. Immediately, I felt it with my finger, and I could feel it felt like a cold human finger. I shined the light from my iPod screen at it and saw that it was indeed a human finger. It was sitting quietly on my bed, but it started to curl itself and stretch itself out. And after that, it started to tap on my bed, and even started doing it more violently. I sat watching it in fear and collected all of the braveness that I had in me to check the space under my bed to be sure that no one was trolling me, and investigate the rest of my room. When I stood up and turned on my light, I could still see the finger on my bed, but I couldn't see anyone under my bed, and no one else was in my room but me. I went back to bed and I rolled over and I tried to go back to sleep because I didn't know what else to do. I could still feel it poking me a little bit, but after a while it went away, and I never saw the finger again. I had just exited a Target store, and I was cutting across rows of cars to get to where my vehicle was parked, when I noticed a shopping cart about 50 feet away from me, dead center in the middle of the parking lot lane, and it began drifting towards me. Now this alone is not that odd, even though I seemed to be the only living soul in the parking lot at the time. It was when I crossed into the next lane, and another cart, nearly the same distance away as the first cart, began slowly drifting down the lane towards me. Did I begin to become uneasy with this situation? I stopped momentarily, and I tried to rationalize the situation. Then I continued moving towards my car, while the two shopping carts continued to shamble down the lane towards me. As weird as it would have probably been forgettable if it wasn't for the third shopping cart waiting for me at the end of the third lane that I entered. As it began moving towards me, I decided that no good could come from me sticking around to find out what would happen if they reached me, so I ran to my car and got the fuck out of there. Honestly, the whole thing seems very surreal, and I have absolutely no idea how any of it can be reasonably explained. My advice, which I follow to this day, is never take your eyes off of the carts scattered across your local market's lot. You might think that they were left by others too lazy to push them back, but really, they might just be getting in position. This was very creepy when it happened. One of my earliest memories is when I was around 4 or so. E.T. had just recently been released, and I was super into it. I had an E.T. poster in my room. I shared a room with my older brother, and one night I was awoken by his snoring, which wasn't uncommon. I was about to get up and walk over to his bed and wake him up to tell him to stop snoring, but something caught my eye. By the light of my nightlight, I could see the poster moving. Not the poster really, but E.T. himself, in the poster, was clear as day, moving within the poster. I was absolutely paralyzed in fear. I wanted to scream or run over to my brother's bed, but I could do nothing but sit and watch in horror. It's difficult to explain his movements. They weren't menacing, and I didn't seem directed at me or anything of that nature, but it filled me with a sense of absolute dread and terror that I've never felt before or since. After what seemed like hours of quite literally paralyzing fear, I managed to make a small creaking sound that seemed to snap me out of it, and I started bawling my head off, waking up my whole house. I wouldn't tell anyone why I was so shaken up. I had this strong sense that I shouldn't talk about it, so they assumed I just had a nightmare. I wouldn't look at the poster for a week, even in the daylight. Finally, I told my brother it scared me, and he took it down for me. Not really unexplained, I guess. Obviously, I was having some sort of hallucination. But I wasn't dreaming, and I was not asleep. Or if I was, it was lucid beyond anything that I ever thought possible. Also, according to my parents and my brother, I never even had an ET poster. It kind of adds to the creepy factor, but it's really probably just their poor memory, as I recall it quite distinctly.